Welcome to Middle Fingers Up, the show where we hold our heads high and our middle fingers higher. I'm your host, Kiran McKay. Today, we're flipping the script on the MFU Podcast. I'm excited to share a special episode from the Bruvcast, where I had the honor of being their guest. This episode is a bit of a departure from our usual format here, but I think you'll enjoy it. If you haven't heard it already, also check out episode 44 here with the Bruvcast titled Share the Struggle, Find the Funny, featuring the hosts Raj and Mick. This episode is particularly special, I would say, as it reflects the Bruvcast's origin of their mantra and also captures the essence of their show. For more great content from Raj and Mick, be sure to follow the Bruvcast on all listening platforms and on Instagram at BruvcastPod. Give us your feedback if you like listening to episodes where your host is the guest. Let me know. I have a few more of these that I have been on in the last couple years when MFU Journey started, but have been a little reluctant or hesitant to share because I really want to make this platform not about me and about our guests. But I have received messages from some of you guys curious to know a little bit more about me, as well as if I've been on other platforms. So this is a shout out to all of you who care so much and want to know a little bit more about me. Appreciate it. Give us your feedback. As we always say, these conversations are door openers. Maybe you want to add on to this conversation. Maybe you have more to suggest or offer. We love your feedback. We love the big rush we're getting with a lot of our guests reaching out and asking to be on the platform because you're getting the message, which is this is for us. So thank you. Enjoy.
Welcome everyone to another episode of Bruvcast. I'm Raj.
I'm Mick.
So today we are joined by a very special guest. I'm really excited because this is someone who reached out to us actually very, very early on in our podcasting. I mean, we're early into our podcasting experience, but this was like super early days. And she just reached out and was like, we should just do an episode together. And that was it. And, we connected, we joined her episode, and now we've invited Kiran to come on ours. So I'd like to all to give a warm welcome to Kiran McKay from the Middle Fingers Up podcast. There we go. Oh. That's the clap.
Do I get the clap?
You get the clap. You get the clap. You get the clap.
It's like college all over again.
Exactly.
Yeah. So just a little bit of background about Middle Fingers Up. So it's a platform with a mission to amplify the voices of those often unheard, especially people of color and the experiences of children of immigrant parents, which actually is a lot of some like overlap and similarities with the types of things you and I discuss on this. I kind of feel like this is like our sister podcast or our cousin podcasts, like from like another country. Yeah, super excited. So welcome, Kiran. So happy to have you on Bruvcast. And yes, you are an honorary Bruv for this episode.
What's up, bruvs?
What's up, bruvs?
Yeah.
Did I interrupt already?
No, you didn't.
Okay,
How's it going?
Okay,
What's going
I love
on?
It. Oh, it's good. I mean, I'm in like middle of the day here. How are you? It's nighttime over there again. That's sort of how we have to do this when we get together.
It is, yeah. It's quarter to 10, so it's not too late. It's not too late.
Do you both work tomorrow?
Yes.
It's a little late. Thank you.
But to be fair, Raj, it's early for us because we normally say we'll do one at 10 on a Thursday, and we end up doing it at 10:30, 11 maybe. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're welcome for keeping you in line.
Yeah.
There you go.
So yeah, this is actually an early episode for us. But yeah, really, really pleased to have you join us, Kiran. I was actually listening to some of your episode, like earlier episodes, because I really wanted to understand how you started out. I feel like you probably started off Middle Fingers Up just before, like a few months before we started. When was that? You want to tell us a little bit about like how it all came into being?
Yeah, we actually were coming up, and first of all, I should start with where my manners. Congrats on 25th. That's a
thank
huge
you.
deal. And so my turn to give you guys the clap right
go.
here. Yeah, that's so big. And I'm so excited for you guys. And I listened because the episode came out today and your wives were on there. So learned a lot about them and you guys and our cultures, just how many similarities, but differences from just having all this space between us from North America to the UK. So really cool episode. I hope they come back again. And we're just actually at the end of the month going to celebrate our first birthday.
Oh, amazing.
Wow.
Yeah, November 28th. So that's kind of cute. Yeah.
Nice. Congrats.
Mm-hmm.
I think, do you know what? And I noticed obviously a few days ago that you've hit 53 now.
Yeah.
You're on 53 episodes. So it's just hand it back.
Yeah. Oh, man. This is that thing we talk about when we go to family members' houses and we bring a gift. And then this happened to us when we were in Vancouver. We went to go see a family member's baby and we brought our gifts. And then we left with more money than we gave. And we felt like the cheap people. I know. It's like, why are we getting money? We're grown-ups. And like, yeah, I know. So now we're just doing that thing where we're giving the $20 bill or whatever it is back. Thank you. And I think you guys know what that's like. It's every chance we get, we should celebrate these milestones because it's so cool what you guys are doing over there. And I know you have life, you have kids, you have everything in between, and the time that you put together for the community, and you guys are blowing up. And I told you would. So this is, I knew this would happen because we need this. We need what you guys are doing. So it's so cool that you guys are at 25.
Thank you. Deal. It is a labor of love. And I feel like, even since we first connected, I feel like we've been cheering each other on, like any small milestone that comes up, like we send each other messages, which is nice because it's quite hard doing this. Like I've felt a next level of imposter syndrome because this is a completely new world for me. Like I don't have a background in any of this space, right? Like content creation, podcasting, any of I've never done any of this before. Neither has Mick, right? Neither of us have. So you're kind of like fumbling your way around and trying to figure out what works and what doesn't work. And a lot of it is trial and error. And we're just constantly experimenting, right? Like last week's episode, I think down to the minute before we started, we weren't sure exactly how we were going to do it, like whether we were going to be on it as well, or whether we're just going to be Gagan and Nish. So like, yeah, it may come across as if or maybe it doesn't come across as if it's polished, but right, but it may come across as if there's a bit more thought that's gone into it.
Because it's so polished. And this is something I will interrupt for because you guys have surpassed in so many ways that it's so funny when I hear you say, oh, this isn't our thing. We don't do this. And just sometimes there's that natural like creativity within us. And it definitely has come out for both of you. And I hear you. It is a lot of work, but I feel that, and I learned this from you both when you were on, just the reminder that we only have so much time in the day. And with that time in the day, when people allocate it to you and your show, that's a big deal. So that kind of makes it worth it in the end when you're doing your late night recordings or editing and all that, because it's needed. And I think it's going to be herky jerky in the beginning because we have no one to follow really, right? Like we're creating our own space with our community, and whether it's artists or people podcasting, actors, directors, whoever out there in the arts world. So yeah, we kind of have to fumble and fall. And that's why I think having a little community to back you up or send the little heart emoji and whatever those little things are when we're like, who wants to listen to me? Like I'm not a public figure, like I don't know. I'm just figuring it out. But I think it's nice to have that connection back and forth. So I've been really enjoying following you both. You're hilarious and your wives are amazing. So this whole thing you guys got going on has been, it's been an honor to be invited here. It's cool to be part of it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I wanted to just, get a bit more of the backstory, right? Middle fingers up. You started this almost a year ago to the day. What's the journey been like, and how did this all come into being? Like, tell us, like, talk us through it.
Yeah. Thank you for asking that question. I think it's always good to remember where these things started from. And so I like any good story, it starts with a bad experience. And you know, it's like that you're watching the kid in the movie that's had a bad thing happen and you're wondering what they're going to do. And in my case, it was just a lot of things going on with I worked in mental health for several years, and that was getting a little taxing because I wasn't able to be there for my boys. I have 2 boys, 12 and almost 10. And I really appreciated my husband was sort of taking the lead, being the primary caregiver. And so I just was like, what am I doing? And then we had a death. We had a family member pass away, or a good friend pass away. And those things, you know, always when it's close in age, you sort of think, oh my goodness. And then there was this really bad experience that happened to my sister and I, where we both were at a really popular local establishment here in Calgary, and where we experienced racism, and it was really disheartening how you know, people responded to it, the people of this establishment, as well as my brother's 10 years younger, and we were out with his future wife to be and all their friends. And when my sister and I were really upset about how this sort of went down, these guys were very immune and responded with, well, you know, like, if we respond to all of these, then we'll have nowhere to be, we'll have nowhere to go. And I was like, what the fuck are we doing? Right? Like, why are we still dealing with this? And why is it that when we share these rough experiences, of the response back is, you calm down? And it's like, no, calm that situation or the lack of education down. It's not the people that are experiencing it. And so I think I just shut down for a bit, and which is not like me. As you guys know, you've known me for a minute and you're like, oh, your energy went from low to high. Like, that's usually, if the energy's not there, there's something going on. And so I think it was just like you thinking about what am I doing? What do I want to teach these boys that are also half white? So there's like that whole thing in there. And anyways, lost my voice for a bit. And I think that was probably a good thing, because out of that, I had a lot of support with family and my husband, and we just thought maybe this is an opportunity when something shitty like this happens, we decide to, you know, kind of like the catalyst to change. And who cares how many people listen or follow or what, that'll come over time. But if we create a platform where voices can be heard in similar scenarios, just like when you guys are talking about the Diwali, it's so cool to be able to listen to an episode that's not about Christmas. It's about Diwali, right? And you get to share these experiences where you're like, oh my gosh, that happens to me. And that's connection. And that's sort of what we're trying to do, is build some connection, hope for, you know, shedding some light on the fact that we can make changes and manage our mental health. And as long as we're talking, you know, so that's kind of how we came about. We just, Middle Fingers Up is all about, you know, being in your face, which is kind of like how I am, and trauma, right? And then how do you deal with all that? So that's where Middle Fingers Up came from. And it's been fun because I do this all the time. So this is like, all of our family photos are always like, you know, we were at a wedding a couple of weeks ago in Vancouver, and we're all dressed up, and the cameraman's, I'm like, whoa, we got to get our fingers up. And everyone's like, oh my God, like this lady here, what is she doing? And my kids are like, yeah, I fought. And my one kid's like, everyone's pointing their fingers to the camera. And my older son is pointing them right at me. And I'm like, oh, okay, I gotta work on this. But yeah, it's about building community, right? So yeah, you know, so that's Middle Fingers. And we'll see, as you know, we start somewhere, and even 25 episodes in, I'm sure it's like, where have you where you started to where you're going, and who knows where the next steps are going to be. So it's kind of the fun part of the journey. You don't have it all figured out.
Yeah, 100%. Definitely.
I think something I wanted to ask you actually, Kiran, as well, right? You mentioned obviously, trying to find that connection, and listening to a few of your episodes as well. And I realized something, we try to, as Indians, not always, you're proud to be Indian, and your culture, etc. But sometimes you're like, when you're going through a struggle because of your culture, you're like, oh, why can't I just be, a different race, or, because they don't go through that. But then when you do get that freedom, right, to make your own decisions in terms of who you're going to marry, etc., right, and then you're in your own home, and you actually miss that connection, because when you go back to your parents' house, those days where you sat on the couch, do it, on your phone or whatever, but your mom was watching that Indian serial that she always watched, and that music in the background, and or even the things they do in the morning, like your dad goes to pray every morning, so you lose. You're not saying you lose it completely, but when you wish it away, and you've got your own life and you don't have time for that anymore, when you go, then you realize and you take a step back and you think to yourself, hey, you know what? Oh, I wish I had that connection again, because I feel like I'm losing it. So it's like kind of like you go left field and you want to go back and get that. And that's what resonated with me. Listening to a few of your episodes actually. And I was like, shit, actually, you know what? Yeah. It'd be nice to go back to that a little bit, because that was part of your upbringing at the end of the day, right?
Yeah.
I mean, for your boys, how are you managing that basically? Like both cultures, how's that going for you?
Yeah, that's a good question. And you're right. Like, it's the nostalgia, right? When we think of our child, anyone from any culture, you think of it's Christmas coming up, and I'm sure lots of adults have memories of cookies being made, and we have our traditions. And I think this is the joy of being in the 40s. I'm really grateful that I had an opportunity to get to the 40s, because I think for me, it was realization that, like, I'm just losing myself. And anyone that's been through that, what that's like. You don't feel like yourself. Nothing tastes right. You can't see things in the right way. You're fuzzy. And a lot of us had that fuzz during COVID too. And I think we can relate that way. And I think just in the last little bit, when I had that little bit of, I need to slow down and reconnect with where I come from. I think it's wonderful to be able to now go back and also have family members that have always been with me that maybe I wasn't as kind or respectful to, because I was trying to fit in with the West. Or I would say it's a white girl complex. That's what I had. I wanted to be a white girl when I grow up. And honestly, it wasn't until I hit my 40s where I'm like, what? Sorry, guys, I swear so much, that. But it's like, literally, like, what the fuck am I doing trying to be, like, it's just tiring. You're tired of being tired. And now there's so much space for us to be both, like, to have the best of both worlds. And I think that's kind of like where I'm at right now for me, trying to get back into the Punjabi music. But it's things like that where I'm like, yeah, I used to dance in the living room with my cousins all the time, right? We used to, like, do these things, and finding that in there. And no one ever told me in my household that I couldn't. Like, my husband never was like, now that you're with me, you must be white, right? Like, it's just I tricked myself to think something in order to be accepted. And that's now it's like realizing the people that I thought accepted me because I was being part of their culture. Not all of them. I have lots of great friends and family members. However, I think it's like realizing you gotta go back to your roots. As much as we complain and get upset with our, children of immigrant parent stories, where we come from is going to impact where we're going, and we can't lose sight of that, because we can't go to where we want to go if we forget where we come from. So yeah, it's like, time to embrace that. So, and my husband's been great with that too. We've had a lot of heart to hearts recently, reading a book together that has been helping me figure out why I've struggled with these things. And Ruby Hamad's, I don't know if you guys know, White Tears, Brown Scars. And she kind of just, it's a great book, and it just helps a lot of people of color understand, for me it did, how we get trapped into some of the Western ways. And some of it is the way it's going to be, and some of it is having to find our voice. But starting at the beginning of a story, right? Instead of the middle.
One thing that I thought was really cool is that your husband is basically like edits your podcast episodes,
everything.
But he also occasionally will come on, and there's been episodes where you both have jumped on and done an episode. And I was listening to the one where you were talking about, like, you went on a road trip and it was just the two of you, and it was really nice. Like, it was a really nice. It's just kind of like you were talking a lot about like proximity, and how, being on a road trip is quite a unique type of a way, like, experience to share with someone, because you can't really go anywhere. You're kind of with that person for better or for worse, right? And if it's like, I think in Canada or in the US, like, road trips is much more of a thing than it is here, like, because you can spend literally hours and hours and hours on the road. Like, I think maybe 6 hours and you're in Scotland already.
Yeah.
from London. So like that's it. There's not much further.
You're done.
You're done, right? But yeah, it was. I found that really. It was a really like intimate episode because it felt like you were just like in the room with the two of you and just kind of like the way that you were talking about things and just sharing how it's important to have time to be a couple, like even after having kids, because me and Gagan have just started that journey, right? Like we've been together and we've now just had a kid, so we're going to be in like that is going to be our lives. And I think there will be a point at which we're going to almost look back and be like, well, what about us, right? Like, do we need to now reconnect and spend time as a couple and not be as a couple with our kids? So it was, I really enjoyed that one. I really enjoyed that episode.
Yeah, I appreciate that. We had a good time doing that one. That road trip was really kind. I think we needed it. And you know what? It's funny when couples are having a baby, and I don't know, you guys must do baby showers, right? As well. Is that what you call it? Yeah. And so you now, after having kids, when I go to a baby shower, I'm like, these fucking babies are going to get everything. So we always give the couple a gift card to like go on a date or something, because I feel that's one thing that we really would have benefited from and learned along the way. You feel disconnected, how that goes. And however, when you're getting in the beginning, it's hard to figure everything out. You're like, what the heck? We had all this time to watch that TV show and now we can't. And oh my gosh, all these things. And it's just easier to lose that glue that held you together, or that space gets wider and bigger and bigger. And sometimes it's hard to bring it back. And so I don't know, for us, we've always had these conversations about it's going to get shitty, and fuck, it gets shitty. But on the other flip side of that, it's nice to have the shitty together because we know we're going to come out of it. We're going to figure it out. Someone will laugh or whatever. So as long as, also, just so you know, as long as your wives talked about the whole farting thing, and I laughed so hard because I was telling Carrie this morning, I'm like, oh my God, I'm totally part of the Bruvs because I'm the only woman in my house. I don't know why I'm telling everyone this, but whatever. That's me. I get so from my kids and from my husband, from my family members, I get so much crap all the time because it's like my kids always teach me the manners, and I'm like, well, sometimes it's hard to get up and go or whatever. Then it's like, it's my house, I'm gonna fart where I want. But yeah, I laugh so hard at that because I thought, oh yeah, I totally can laugh at both ends of that thing.
Yeah,
but
definitely.
Those are the things, right, that I think build a relationship. The farts. If you can get through that, that's great. But yeah, so that episode was a fun one. We had a good time doing that. Will you guys do something with the wives? Like, will they both come on, you think, together with you?
I don't know. Yeah, I think everything is on the table at the moment, to be honest. Go on, Mick. You're gonna say
I was just going to say, I don't know. You know why? Because before we actually logged on to this podcast, as in before you joined, Kiran, the first thing Raj said to me, these girls have got a lot of good feedback, and you should have seen that face. And I was like, you seem worried. So
yeah, but you know what? Sure. You guys brought it on too, because this is sort of the culture you created, right, from the beginning. So I was listening to it in a couple times. I was like, and then I was like, no, good for them. And honestly, though, a lot of the things they did cover, I hope they do come back, because a lot of what they talked about should be talked about. And a lot of women, I think, are in a place where they are recognizing and want to talk about those things. And even like my mom wants to go back and talk about some of those things with me too. Like sometimes with parenting and postpartum and these things. And so good for both of them to, apart from, harassing you both, which I'm sure you earned it. But I got to stick with the ladies on this one. I can't, it's like bros before hoes. What's the thing for the chicks before dicks? I don't know if I can say that story. You're going to have to edit a lot, Raj.
No, I'm keeping that.
Canada, eh? This is how we do.
Yeah, it's just how they talk over there. They just all talk like that. So that's what's up.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I think all options are open at the moment in terms of kind of like having them. And I really I loved the episode that they did. And I think it was I think I was impressed as well at but they both kind of handled it, because I remember when Mick and I were first doing our episodes, like there's episodes that we've thrown out that just the flow wasn't there. We were getting in our heads about it, and
you're being too polite. I'm sorry, I have to interrupt you there. You're being too polite. So check this.
Go on then, bro.
The first episode. So Raj goes to me, do you want to start a podcast? I was like, yeah, cool. It's like 11:30 at night. I'm 40 minutes from my house because he lives further away now. And I'm thinking to myself, and he gets out his phone and he puts it on this stool in front of us in his living room, gets his phone out and press record. He goes, let's do it now. I was like, what? And then he just introduced his podcast, and all of a sudden he goes, Mick, this is where you start talking. And I'm like, oh man, I just froze. I just froze. I was like, what do we talk about? And then he was like, what we normally talk about. And I was like, oh, this is harder than it looks, or, that we're in our heads, etc. Sorry, Roger, but I just had to just.
No, it's true.
When you relive that moment, to be fair, we're only 25 episodes in, but I don't know, Kiran, from your first episode, to be fair, listening to your first episode and the latest one, I just feel your comfort zone was there, to be fair. I don't know, as a listener, I don't know if you personally felt that way, but that's the way your sister-in-law and your brother were there as well, they just seem so natural. And obviously you guys have, chemistry outside of, or outside the podcast, obviously, because you're related, obviously. But, I just think it's nice, when you bring family members in as well, and they can, really project you, as well.
Yeah.
So,
I think that's a lovely way to talk about yourself without talking about yourself, because exactly. Even with both your wives being on, they brought out so many cool things in all the stories that they shared that taught us a lot about both of you. And I think that's a lovely thing for your listeners to get to know you. And also, I'm sure they have a big role in the background as well. Massive. Right? Like so that's a great partnership. You kind of need both to be able to do what you are doing. And I think that's the thing with creativity. We don't go there because we feel like there's so much that we have to put forth in a 9 to 5 or whatever. I don't know, your hours are 9 to 5, but like the regular hustle bustle Monday to Friday thing. And that's great. We need to put the food on the table. But when we want to find that little light back that we lost, those people are the ones that are going to help us more than anything, because they're the ones that when you have imposter syndrome, they're going to say, you got this, get in there. You talked about that thing that day and that was a big deal. Or I'm sure you run things by them before, like the little segment we're going to do in a little bit. I ran that by Carrie too. I'm like, should I bring this one up? Like, here's a struggle and I can find the funny in it this way. But, it's nice to have partnership in a way that you can. And also, I'm sure they keep you humble, right? Like Carrie's always can you talk better sometimes, or let the other person talk? And you're like, right. Thank you. And I'm grateful for that. I'm not complaining. I'm sure right for you too. Thanks for caring enough to tell me. So
absolutely.
I actually also touching on what Mick was saying, I think from the first episode that you have done, the way that you introduce your segment is unchanged, right? Like we hold our heads high and our middle fingers higher.
Yeah.
And it's consistent and it's clean. I think we got into after 10 episodes, we're like, bruv, we need a format. Because we're going all over the shop. We need something. If two people are talking about this podcast and one person's trying to tell the other person what it's about, they need to be able to describe it in a sentence, not be like, oh yeah, this is two guys just chatting shit for an hour. But yeah,
that's a great one though. Your slogan, it's a great tag because it does sum it all up. I was telling my friend that does my eyebrows today about both of you and exactly use the slogan too. And this is, it's their way of using comedy to bring out some of the things that many of us are thinking about or worried about. And but you get to laugh your ass off while you're going through that. And that's a great way to celebrate mental health when you're laughing, so Yeah. Over here, right there. Clap right back at you. I gave it back.
Yeah, she gave it back. She's ahead now.
With all this clapping, you know what it reminds me of? You know, if you go to like, when you go to like an Indian wedding and then there's an uncle, when someone's doing a speech, right? there's one uncle that just fucking interrupts. Go on, man. Oh, funny, huh? Good night, huh? All this random shit, yeah. And you're like, let the guy down, do the fucking speech, yeah. Or they start clapping early. Or they clap late.
Yeah.
I don't know why that just popped into my head.
I'm glad it did because I was just at an Indian wedding and I have to get this off my chest too. I have a note section on my phone that's like ideas for middle fingers up, and there's speeches and there's dances. Like the family really cares about this couple. They really gave a production and they did a great job. It was fun for all of us, probably sucked for all of them because it's a lot of work, but we had a good time. And people are doing speeches and they close the bars down as they like to help people, right? And they even said there's a bar outside of the banquet hall, like just in the main kind of area of entry. There's also an outside patio. Go out there if you want to talk. It's all good. You want to catch up. And we were sitting close to one of the bars and people were fucking going, man. Like the bars closed or standing there and they're talking and talking and talking. And like, I just like have zero patience for that because to me, the weddings are the best fucking thing in the world. And I take them seriously. And it's a free date, first of all. And you get to dress up, eat, dance, do all this stuff. Like I love them. And also I love this couple and I want to hear what everyone's saying. So, excuse me, finally I couldn't help it. And so I'm like, like so loud. I don't want to yell it in the mic, but just shush the whole bar so hard. And my sister's sitting next to me, and my sister's the middle child. So, you know, Raj, you can you get that. It's like the pleaser. And she's like, hey, it's not our event. It's okay. It's not our event. Let it go. And I'm like, fuck you too, man. And I'm like up to these people. And then like people shut up. The groom came up to me later and he's like, we watched that from the stage. Thank you for that. And I'm like, I'm sorry. And then a couple people from other tables came up. They're like, thank you for that. Thank you for that. So I looked at my sister and I'm like, fuck you. We needed this. But then the loudness continued, right? Because you can only do it for so long. And so when the groom got up, his like speech was the first time in my life that I have seen, you could hear a pin drop. It was so silent because he started his speech in Punjabi and it's not the greatest Punjabi. So, you know, it takes a lot of vulnerability and courage to get up there and tell this story in Punjabi. And it was like a little letter back to his grandpa about how they used to talk about when he was little and when you're going to get married. And so everybody stopped talking. And I thought, you know what it is? Like, I hate these people by the bar, but now I feel bad because it's connection again. And, you know, like it connection is on so many different levels. And I think we have to be respectful that we're going to this event and we need to stop and think about the people who we're showing up for. But at the same time, I get it. Like we talked about the roots and starting at the beginning. Like, I think a lot of people in our community appreciate when we go back to our roots and speak our language or get connected in that way. And so I was amazed by the groom's ability to get everybody to stop talking. So that I thought that was pretty good. But man, that's a middle fingers up. If you're at the bar and you're talking, like, you should, shame on you is what I say to that. Do you guys do that?
No, if someone's doing a speech, like we put a lot of effort in, like, so there's been like, you know, 6 of us that have got married, and when we do the speeches for each other's weddings, it's like a production. Like there's a lot of research that goes into it, a lot of like video editing and that comes out to it. So it's hard. And also some people aren't, you know, natural or like comfortable or confident at doing speeches. So it's already hard to get up there and stand in front of like a massive group. So yeah, if you have people like chatting away, or if you have that uncle that's being a nuisance, then it doesn't help the situation. So yeah, we should all have a Kiran, like a Kiran at every wedding, just by the bar.
My boys call me Karen. They're like, Karen, mom. And I'm like, all the time. Such a Karen. My oldest son was sitting at the table and he locked eyes with me and he's like, Karen. And I'm like, no, whatever. Everybody needs a Karen. And, you know, oldest daughter syndrome, right? You gotta be in charge of everyone.
There's a gap in the market. Everyone needs to have a Karen at the You hire a Karen.
I was just like,
it should come with like the package of like, okay, so this is this is the food, this is the menu, this is the DJ, this is the decor, and you have a Karen as well. They will make sure that no one is speaking too loud when the speeches are happening. And they'll be like, they'll charge you an extra, like, I don't know, how much, 1,000? That's about the standard, right? Having a Maharaj is $1,000 nowadays, right? Like everything. You can't do anything for less than $1,000. Like no one will talk to you.
No,
the standard now.
It is literally the standard. It does not matter what if you're buying a green pepper, it's $1,000. If you're seriously, right? Going to these weddings, it's no more. You can't give the minimum amount that back in the day. I think inflation has messed us all up. So thanks, COVID.
One thing that I did want to touch on before we get to the share the struggle is the last episode. So that you did, Middle Fingers Up, which was Nisha. That episode was phenomenal. I really liked it. I really appreciated the vulnerability. And I made a couple of notes. Like you had this analogy of like a leaky faucet analogy, and you're just talking about like staying quiet is harder than speaking up, and just really talking about how there can almost be like an expectation to stay quiet and not speak up, especially as a woman, especially going through things like postpartum. And I think Nisha's story was unique because she was also going through the loss of her father and then the birth of a child, right? Her third child. So it was very deep, just to kind of like hear it and get that perspective and just hear an Asian woman talking, deeply about mental health, which I've never heard anyone talking like that. And I think as a guy, I think you're giving people a platform to have these conversations and show their vulnerability, but you're also helping educate men and Asian men about what is going on the other side, right? Because if you're married to someone, if you're having a child with someone, or you've had a child with someone recently, yes, you're with them 24/7, but they may not always be comfortable in telling you all of the things, like the deepest and the darkest things that are happening, especially with postpartum and all the rest of it. So I just wanted to kind of like applaud you for doing that episode, because I think it really hit hard for me, like listening to that. And I think one thing that, Mick and I'm always sending him like feedback that we get. Like someone might send us a note on Instagram, or we might get an anonymous feedback. And one time recently we got a message from a listener saying, that the podcast actually helped them through a tough time that they were going through. We're just sitting with a mic, and we don't know where this is going, and no expectations or anything. But the fact that this is helping people or giving them entertainment or kind of like getting them like through something is really rewarding. I just wanted to kind of say that I don't think you will or ever will understand the impact that what you are doing is having on people, all the listeners, and like whatever people are going through. Just hearing some of those things may actually kind of make them open up, make them kind of seek help and all the rest of it. So yeah, I thought it was great. So I just wanted to kind of give you a... Oh, man. As I'm like, now we are ahead.
My tears here. Now I have to accept this clap and wipe my tears. That was really... Thank you for that. You're...
Well said, Raj.
I know. Don't worry. It's coming back soon. But that was really meaningful. I appreciate that, because you're I'm sure in the same boat. It's that imposter syndrome. It's hard to sometimes think you are doing the right thing or the good thing, or, are people going to get offended? Because this isn't about shutting conversations. It's about opening doors and all this stuff. But I think you said it really well right now. Like, we don't know where this is going, and that's life. And we just have this, we're so blessed to be in this place where we have so much safety to be able to talk or, hug someone or Google what to do when I'm having intrusive thoughts. And our parents didn't get that, and generations before didn't get that. And I think we're fortunate that the next generations are hopefully going to carry that and get better education. But it's just about talking about everyday real stories. And, you go on Netflix and there's great celebrities that we all want to know their story and what happened, and that tragic thing. And I think that's great. but also that's not you, that's not me, and that's not like the billions of however many of us are around the world. That's a small percentage. And when you get to hear someone share something, whether it's a funny story about polishing your boots or it's about, am I going to harm myself? I think that's, again, where we connect, and then we're going to make better decisions as humans. We're going to feel the love. We're going to have self-compassion and hopefully, you know, have better communities. And that's what it is at the end of the day. And Nisha's story, I cried the whole time when I was listening to it the other day. And it's the first time I've done that during an episode, because she's the first one from our community that's come on the show that literally was worried about imposter syndrome, was blown away when I was like, I really want to talk to you, because she just thought, what would I have to give? And I don't know, when people start with that, I'm like, you're the one that has so much to give. You just need someone to tell you that we need it out. And yeah, the feedback we get, I'm with you. When someone messages you and says that hit home, or that helped, or just thank you for that. Or, you know, I had a Chinese woman on a few episodes ago, and I had a Chinese friend message me this long message about, to hear a woman from my community talk about the struggles of growing up as a, you know, with Chinese immigrant parents. And this woman is going through breast cancer, and to hear her talk about these sorts of things, she's like, I'm just crying in my car right now because I feel like, oh my gosh, someone gets it. And I think when you connect with your culture in that way, like, you have this aha moment of, oh, this is why it's so important to build each other up instead of looking at each other as competition or jealousy. Like, we already have that fight with the rest of the world. We need to be there for each other, and you know, people of color, it doesn't matter if you're Punjabi or Hindu or what, Chinese, like, people of color, we I think, as Suchayar Bhavin said, right, we're the global majority, so there's more of us. And I think when you feel like you got these people having your back, you're more inclined to want to come and talk. But people, like, I had yesterday, I recorded with, this is the first time someone on their own that no one referred, or I didn't reach out myself. They were a true listener, and they were like, I was inspired by a story, and I actually know that person, and I have a similar story, and I want to talk about my addiction. And this is a young guy. He's not even 30. He's from like Vancouver. So was battling addiction, but has been in recovery for 4 years. And it was such a cool conversation, because I was telling my husband, I'm like, you know, it's hard for guys to talk in our community. He's in this place where he's figuring out the vocabulary behind some of the things that have caused him to have the addiction. And I think that's so cool, because that guy is going to influence way more people than I could ever, you know, hope for, because there's so many guys in our community that are suffering with addiction and think, you know, like, we don't know the line of having a good time and needing the drink for all the, you know, reasons that we continue to do it. So people like that, I bow down to. I'm so grateful for, because they're the ones that make us keep doing what we're doing, right? If we don't have their buy-in and their support, then it'd just be the three of us talking and listening to each other's episode, right?
Exactly. And obviously, like, giving, like, them a platform as well. And for them, it's like they're showing their bravery in the sense that they're just, do you know that relief? Like, I don't know if you feel this, but when you've carried something with you for so long, and then you're just like, fuck it, you know what? I need to get this out. And I think from that moment that you let it all out,
a good fart.
It's a good fart. It's a gassy fart, right? That you've been holding in.
yeah. And then you let it out, and you're like, I feel so much better. Sorry, but go. Yeah.
No, exactly. But it's not, you know, the relief from the fart, but the relief is long-term relief in the sense that, you know, you could change as a person. You can become much more open. Like, and I think this is for us as well. Like, in the sense that, I don't know about, you know, I'm sure with you, Kiran, and you, Raj. So for me, since we've started doing this podcast, now everything that we talk about is kind of honest and out in the open. So I'm more open with, you know, more, you know, people probably wasn't as open with before, you know, just talking to them. And I think they feel more comfortable talking maybe to us as well, right? Because there's nothing, you know, you are as you are on this podcast, as you are, you know, walking, you know, you're living your everyday life now. So, and I think that's the beauty of it. And getting that positive feedback, when you've helped someone or when you weren't expecting to get that feedback, it's like, on a game, you got that power bar on Street Fighter, boom, and you want to start recording again.
Yeah.
You're right. This relief of, I think also like, oh, are you hearing that?
Yeah. I don't know where that's coming from.
Sorry. That was my way. I think that was a motorbike going past.
Oh, right.
Whoa.
My bad.
I was like, oh my gosh, that was loud.
Yeah, I thought like it was some spaceship or something.
And I was like, is it just me, my headphones? Because then
Mick was about to get abducted. That's what it was.
That was a really big fart. You know what? That topic rears its way in every damn... I think from that, the Dudley episode that we did, pretty much every episode since, somehow that topic comes in like some subtle ways.
It's boy talk too. I live in a house full of boys. It's funny that I'm the farter, but poo-poo, pee-pee, butt talk is just constant in our house. Constantly mooning each other. I have to witness all this. I live in a frat house, so I the butt talk for sure. And I also agree with the bathrooms. Like, why do we have to like have such a not safe stall to be able to do a number two in? I do appreciate now.
So it's like that in Canada, right?
Oh yeah, but the new establishments are taking that whole unisex sort of all gender bathroom that Europe's always had. And it's you go into a little tiny room and the door closes, and that's when you're like, yes. Everyone's farting it like freely and doing whatever it is. Because otherwise, I can't. I have stage fright, man. I can't go to the bathroom like that. And
you feel exposed.
100%, man. And like probably not even enough toilet paper too. Like that's the other thing. Like you just and bidets. Like there's no bidets, so it's not happening. Yeah. No. Did you guys ever grow up with the Indian bidet where we had the sour cream container or like a little bottle by the toilet?
No, but you know what? Yeah, we didn't have a sour cream, but we had these. I don't know. Mick, do you remember Unigate? Unigate used to be these milk bottles that we used to get, glass milk bottles they used to get, right?
Better. That's
glass
high-end,
milk
man.
bottles, and you'd have them like the OG like milkman would come, and you'd get your new milk bottles every couple of days. But I remember like when I was younger, I was so confused. I was like, why is there a milk bottle in the toilet? It doesn't make any sense. Like it's always empty. Why does anyone ever take it down? And then I was educated of what its purpose was. So it wasn't sour cream. It was a Unigate milk bottle.
All my white friends would be like, "What's going on? Why do you guys have this container here?" And I'm like, "Just move along. Nothing to see. Just whatever. Put it in your diary about the weird thing the Indian girl taught you today. Like, I don't know. Get out of here now, right?" But it's just like it's so embarrassing because you're like, "Mom, you have to have the sour cream container out, man. Like, put it away when the guests come." But you want to offer all of your hospitality, or you want to offer the Indian bidet. Right?
It's the full experience. You got when in Rome.
Yeah, exactly.
So let's get to the share the struggle, find the funny. Do you have a struggle that you would like to share with us?
Yeah. So I'm not sure if I'm going to be following your template or structure, but I think
there isn't. That's all it is. Okay, it's just that. So we can go any direction from here. And
it's funny that I'm doing this with you two dudes, but it's okay. It's about the period. So as I told you, I'm raising two boys. I'm the only woman in the house. And often, once a month, I look like the crazy lady in the house. And, your children start to create their own conspiracy theories of like, what is up with our mother? Because 1 minute I was laughing and now I'm yelling at everyone and the house is too dirty and why is she wearing a bathrobe 2 days in a row laying on the couch crying, right? Watching Love Actually. So I thought, okay, you know what? Why am I hiding this? Like I want to raise them to understand what happens. This is normal. Why am I so ashamed? And so they had sex ed at school and they kind of learned a little bit about it. And so one of them had already been like, oh my gosh, like this happens to girls. Like, I'm really sorry. And so he kind of already knew. So I let them know that this is what happens. I get the period as simple as possible, right? That this happens once a month. It's healthy. And with that, sometimes there's hormonal stuff. And sometimes mom gets irritated. Sometimes mom needs a lot of chocolate. you just have to do your best to give mom everything she needs in those 5 days and treat her like the queen those 5 days. Like, you know, because that's what you're supposed to tell them, aren't you? Right? So I don't know. This was like a couple months later, and I guess I was having a bad month. So I had the candy drawer open. I'm like a gargoyle, like bent over and just like shoving chocolate in my mouth and wearing the bathrobe and just like eating it. And so my son comes around the corner and he's like, Mom, like, what do you do? Like, so disgusted. Like, what are you doing? Oh, it's so gross. And I'm like, just look at him. I'm like, you know, leave me alone. And then all of a sudden he's like, oh, do you have your period? And I'm like, yeah. And I'm like, crumbs on my face. And he's like, okay, what day of 5 are you on right now? And I'm like, fuck this, right? And I'm like, I don't know, two or 3. Okay, hang in there, Mom. It's going to be okay. We only have a couple more days. Would you like me to bring some of these treats to the living room for you? Like, what can I do for you? You're going to be okay. And so he walks into the living room, and my brother was living with us at the time. He was our manny for several years, and Carrie's sitting out there, and they heard the whole thing, and I walk around the corner, and their faces are just like, you know, like if anyone's not watching, I guess is, you know, mouth wide open. And I like came out of the corner, and I didn't know whether to be like impressed or was he like patronizing me? Like, what the hell was that about? But at the end of the day, we go back to that story a lot together in the household, just the importance of, instead of hiding it and constraining it, like just get it out, talk about it. And sometimes we're at our worst. And when we're at our worst, it's helpful for family members to know what that looks like so they can help us, right? Because I'm not going to necessarily be in the best place. So I just always think about that gargoyle bathrobe chocolate moment and my kid being like, oh. And so it was like one of those things where it was fun afterwards to talk about, but you know, leading up to it or during it, I was like, okay, I don't know if I overshared or what, which I happen to do too. But anyways, that was like the thing that we can laugh about later. It's like now it's a running joke. Like, do you have your period? And I'm like, this isn't what we do. We don't say, Karen, do you have your period? Like, no, not okay. Right. But we're working on that. We're working on the timing of the humor in the house. But yeah, it's just normalizing some of the things that we all go through day to day. And hopefully they appreciate that when they get older. I don't know. You know?
I think it's important. I think it's important for them to understand. We never got that. No. Like, I had no idea what was going on. I had 2 sisters as well, right? Like, no one sat me down until we had we were taught it in school, but like within the family, it was just not discussed. And even like, so you can't. So if a woman's on a cycle, you can't go to like certain religious ceremonies or anything like that,
right?
And then I would ask, why isn't my sister come? My mom would be like, oh no, she can't come. But she would never like
tell you why.
I wouldn't understand why. Like,
and you're like, not fair.
Yeah, why? Yeah, why can't? Why? No, I'd be like, why can't she come? Or why isn't she coming? And then I'd insist.
Yeah.
And then I think as I got older, slowly I'd get like I was drip fed pieces of information. And it was hard for them, right? Like, I think it's a different generation. So I think it's good.
So was that fair?
Sorry?
Was that good?
Yes, okay, yes, definitely. No, I think it was a good one because I think, like Raj said, now looking back, because obviously since being married, you're exposed to more, right? In terms of, and then you start to put the pieces together. Oh, so that's why my sister was so grouchy because when I said this about her, or and that's the thing. I think it's okay for parents. Well, hopefully the mum more, because I wouldn't want my dad talking to me about that kind of stuff. Yes.
My dad will send me. It would be very confusing for the two of us if my dad sat down and tried to break what goes down to me
down there.
Yeah. No. Let's not. I would rather figure it out myself.
Yeah. Put the pieces together, right?
Yeah. Or just be ignorant for the rest of my life.
You might have to talk to your daughter about it, though. So you better get ready.
Yeah, definitely.
You know? you know?
I think, yeah.
I mean, it might suck for the daughter, but hey.
Exactly. Yeah. I'm sure Nish won't even let that happen. She knows I'll probably botch it up.
It's
just such a simple thing to explain, isn't it? Like it's easy to explain it to someone to make them understand, and then you'll never get it again. But our parents insistent on just being like, no, like you said, Rod, she can't come. She can't go there, you know. And then you constantly prod. You prod and prod and prod.
Because,
and then...
but the thing, the difference with our generations is if our parents were to ask their parents why they were doing something or why they were not doing something, there'll be outrage. Like it was, this is the way that it is because I said so. You know, what film is it? Some Bollywood film. Kedia, bus, Kedia. Like that kind of that kind of line, right? Like it is that's what it was. And I think our generation didn't do that. We question everything. I think that is part of what the difference is.
Yeah.
And also maybe that's why, you know, they may not have answers, especially when it comes to like traditions or religious ceremonies and things. Some of the things that have been happening for years, you ask, well, why do we do it like this? And they're like, yeah, it's just how it is. But that's what they're really trying to say to you is, I have no idea. Yeah. I didn't ask, so I'm not going to answer.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I never thought of it that way. I honestly have never thought, I'm having like a aha moment, never thought of it that way, that they also didn't get to ask, so they only know, because I just assume my parents would know every custom, right? And have the custom book memorized. But you're right, like they probably didn't know. They just went along and had to do it. And it kind of dies with our grandparents, who probably have the best idea, if at all, if they didn't have to come, you know, immigrate early here. But yeah, for us now. But I think it's a parenting instinct though, when you have to hear your kid question you, because it's just, even though we're educated enough to know that good for my kid to be curious, sometimes it's like, shut the fuck up and just do it. But you can't do that, right? So then you have to passive aggressively find a way, be like, oh, I got my period early, guys. It's staying all month. It's here all month. It's not 5 days anymore. Science has changed. It's 30 days now. So yeah. Right? Like it's sometimes you just want to be like, just do it. But I do appreciate they challenge us, because you're right. We wanted to know those things, and now I don't know why we do half the things we do too.
Yep.
You know?
I had a few questions just to talk through about your podcast. What has surprised you since you embarked on this podcasting adventure? Like, what was something that you're like, you know, unexpected that you came across or you've learned?
Well, there's a lot of things, a lot of things that helped me realize this isn't about me. It started out about me, like finding my voice, this personal journey, and 53 episodes in, we're looking back now, and we're talking a lot about this is not about my journey. This is about our journey. And I think that's the biggest, going from me to we. I think that's the biggest thing that I've learned in the 50 episodes is every time a new guest comes on or someone comments about an episode, you're like, the community is building, and you think you have to stand up alone, and you realize that's not the case. There's a lot of people standing behind you or with you. So I think that was the biggest thing. I didn't know what to expect. I honestly didn't know. I didn't know at all, and I still don't, you know, but we're going to keep pushing through, because it's I feel important to keep talking about those stories. So, but yeah, it's the community aspect.
Yeah. I completely agree. I think that there's just unintended or unexpected things that come out of this type of work, and I feel like you just have to be open to it all, and also open to it not going maybe in the direction that you think that it's going to go. And that's okay, right? Like it may go in you may go on a completely different tangent. And I think we kind of try and do the same ourselves, and just like, you know, we might try something new, or, you know, have conversations about different things that we want to try, different topics that we want to cover. And then often it ends up with like, bruv, let's just try it.
Yeah.
Like, why are we overthinking this? Just let it happen. And sometimes it might end up, sometimes it doesn't work, sometimes it does. And a lot, the examples that I would give is the trailers that we make for the episodes. Some of those were like, I'm not sure about this one. And those are the ones that actually are more impactful and get more views and more shares and more likes than some of the ones that were like, oh God, this one, everyone's going to find this one funny. And then it's like, no one found out. Or it didn't do as well. So I think you're learning all the time. It's a community, right? Today we hit 800 followers, right? And like there's 800 people have decided to follow.
Don't say that. She's going to clap, see?
Yeah, that's 2 claps. You got 2 claps. You each have one now. You don't even have to share that last one I gave you. Look,
but like it's a community, right? And I think that it's just trying to understand what that audience wants. And figuring out, right, and you're hacking your way to it, right, essentially, because you're going to try different pieces and some things work, some things won't, which is why feedback is so important for us. And again, for all those listening, just please continue to give feedback, because it really helps us know how this is resonating or not.
Right. Can I add something to what you said? Carrie, my husband, taught me something really important that sometimes he has to remind me is sometimes I get stuck up and think about what do our listeners, what do they want? And how do we keep them wanting to come back every week? And he's been so great at reminding me that it's not about trying to think about what people want, but it's staying true to what you feel needs to be out there. And people will follow, people will join, people will be part of that. Or they'll tell you, like, not into that. I'd like to see more of this. So I don't know if I could offer anything. I'm actually offering my husband's wisdom, not even my own. That's how pathetic I am.
Thanks, Kerry. We appreciate your wisdom.
Exactly. Thanks, Kerry. Now he's the brav. Fuck's sake. Don't take my friends away from me.
To get him on.
God damn it. I always lose my friends because of that guy.
Thank you.
And thank you, Kerry.
Yeah. Thanks, Kerry.
Kiran, I had a question for you as well. I know it's more of a question, but you're 53 episodes in, right? So if you look at from episode 1 to 53, as a person, you've probably grown so much as well. What would you say to episode number 1, Kiran, compared to episode number 53, Kiran?
Oh, you're putting me on the spot. I've grown so much and I have to go with that. That's a good question. Well, I started out smoking weed before most of the episodes. And I don't anymore because it was sort of to help some anxiety or this worry. And I'm like, no, man, like I can't get into this weird habit. Then what's next? Right. So I don't want to be present. So I realize I'm managing the anxiety quite a bit. But also I think the difference, the big one is really working hard on, and I'm still working on this, that interrupting thing. Yeah. Like sometimes I just get so excited and I want to finish it for you, or I want to jump in and ask 10 other questions. And the last few episodes, I've been able to be quiet more, but I'm listening. I'm not quiet. I'm listening, and I'm feeling like the guests get to say way more in that sort of realm. So I'm appreciative of being able to take good feedback from people. Don't want to say their names, but there's, rhymes with Mary, in terms of, say less. So I think that's always been my issue, and I'm going to keep working on that, but I'm noticing a difference too, because it feels nice to be able to give this undivided sort of space for the guests to be able to talk. So those are like tangible things that I've learned about me. And, I think honestly, like the big pieces are just people, every time they come on, it's learning that under their story, the biggest one is self-compassion. Like anyone that share their story, but whether it's addiction or, mental health, even when I've had professionals on, it's always about self-compassion. And I've been really, really appreciative of hearing that repetition from the guests quite a bit. So that's like the process learning, and talk less. As your listeners are learning, she does not talk less. Get this lady out of here.
I think it's good though. I feel like the episodes that you do, they're conversations which they really quickly go really deep. And I think that's a talent, right? Like I think some people just have a natural ability to make others open up. And you have that, and it comes across in your episodes, because within 10, 15 minutes of someone, you start the episode and all of a sudden you've gone to a place where someone's being like really vulnerable or sharing something really like personal. So yeah, I mean, we're all work in progress.
Yeah.
And I think it's just, figuring out, where could you improve, or how could you be better? That's the first step. And then after that, it's like, well, do I want to do that or do I not? Yeah.
We're like the hardest critics on ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And when you hear stories of people and their vulnerability and how much self-compassion they had to have or find to be able to find the light, it's inspiring to know that, okay, some of these things I'm struggling with personally, okay, there's light. I can work. Like the body image ones, or those ones always touch. They're really, I find them really personal, because those are some of my own struggles growing up, and like really not recognizing it until later in life, and then having a hard time dealing with those. And when we have a body image episode, and those are hard, those are the hardest ones to find guests that want to talk about that. People will talk about addiction, they will talk about divorce, they'll talk about mental health, they will talk about a lot, they'll talk about suicide, self-harm, but when it comes to body image, it's a hard one for a lot of people. And that is, like you said, the message that, we gotta talk more about it. But a lot of those guests have been really, really inspiring in how they have shared their story. And I'm grateful. Don't you feel grateful? Like when you get to have people on, or when you hear from your listeners just about something that was on your mind, and it's like this relief to know that, okay, it is on other people's mind. It's not just
100%,
me,
100%.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of the philosophy of why we started this, right? Like, I think that goes back to, I think when we were on your podcast, and we were talking about like the backstory of how Bruvcast came into being, which I don't think we've even talked about it on Bruvcast, right? Like I think the first episode kind of touches at it a little bit, but I think we go into a lot more detail, because Kiran very masterfully kind of makes us talk about everything about our deepest, darkest feelings about why the hell did you decide to do this podcast. But part of it was that, right? Like it was conversations that I would have with Mick, and I'd be like, bro, is this just me? Mick was like, nah, man, that's just married life. But it's true though, and I think it's important to kind of recognize what you're trying to go after, because then you know how to play it and how to work the episodes and how to kind of like choose the topics that you think are going to resonate with your audience. Was there any questions, Mick, on your side that you wanted to cover before we wrap up?
There was one actually. Without giving away too much, but what's next for Middle Fingers Up? Anything exciting that you wanted to share? And I'll put you on the spot here.
Yeah, well, our 1 year's coming up, so we have a cute little thing coming out soon with that. Something I'm really excited. I've been working on a South Asian doctor who works with women's health and menopause and postpartum. And I've been working like all year trying to get her on. And so we got a date down. And so I'm really looking forward to that. Just lots of unknowns in women's health. And it doesn't matter how old you are, 20, 40, 60. It's like, how many generations have to go through this before we can get some more answers about how do we, you just have to deal with menopause. That's just not fair anymore. So I'm really excited to focus on health. And then we have a few other surprises that we're working on. So I don't want to jinx it, but hopefully we can get a few other members from our community on that have been making quite a impression out here in Alberta and Calgary, just trying to help bring the South Asian community to light. Oh man, you're like, is that you again, Mick? You got a rowdy neighborhood. Is that south?
You're gonna hear gunshots next.
Oh shit! Jeez, sideways too. Man, south.
That's just gonna be Nishma.
Yeah, that's just my wife.
Yeah,
you're 15 minutes over.
I'm calling the cops.
She would not need to call the cops, guys. Come on, we all know that.
It's true.
She
it's true.
is
She
the
just called my
cops.
kids.
Sorry,
We're working on a few people from our community that have been making quite an impression in Alberta here, trying to get more events happening for our community. It's not these celebrations, I think you guys were talking about, or was it the girls that were talking about the Wali at university? And I'm like, oh my God, like that maybe in Vancouver, and maybe Toronto, but lots of other parts of Canada that just wouldn't be happening. And not to say it can't, and maybe one day it will. So we have some people in the community here that have been working really hard to set sort of the space for the South Asian community. So I'm really hoping to get some of them on to talk a little bit and maybe build some inspiration about how do you do that? How do you get out there? And when, from starting from scratch, Vancouver has a big South Asian community and a big presence. So it hasn't, I think they are a little ahead in some ways. So yeah, so those are some of the folks that are coming on. And then I'm dying to have my siblings on. That's like, I don't care. I don't need a celebrity. I don't need anyone big, but I'm dying to do a siblings episode. I'm just a big fan of Alfred Adler's whole piece about how you grow up as in the sibling line impacts your relationships and who you are. And I feel like there's a lot of truth to that. So I'm begging my sister. I got her on the 50th, for a phone call. So I'm hoping she'll come back. But my brother will. If she comes on, he'll come. He'll come most times. But yeah, so that's the one that I'm like actually the most excited to do. So what about you guys? Anything cool coming up?
Well, we just hit our 25th, so I think that was our big milestone. There we go. There's the clap. We are officially losing now. Yeah. I think I don't have anything immediate in my mind. Mick, do you have anything on your side?
No,
I think we've really spoken about it.
Yeah, we've not really, spoken about. I think just us two jumping on at the moment. We're kind of enjoying it at the moment, and that basically means we have no one who wants to join us.
Please join us.
That's not true. You have your friend that comes on all the time. To sub in. You have one friend.
We have one friend.
Now you have two others.
We haven't seen him for a while, actually.
Yeah.
It might be.
We'll bring them back.
Come on anytime. I've been looking forward to this forever because I heart you guys so much. Your energy and your just how you are in conversation. You're so inviting. You're so open. That anytime you feel lonely and you need someone to, or you need me on to make yourselves feel better, because I'm really good at that as well. I got you. Just
Thanks,
don't
bro.
stop doing what you're doing.
Out.
Yeah, I got you, bruvs.
Thanks, bro.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, that's right.
So we're gonna wrap up now. Just wanted to give a massive shout out to Middle Fingers Up. If you have not heard of this podcast, check it out. It's available on Spotify, Apple, all the platforms. Great conversations, honest conversations. Runs the gamut. I think you've had like everything from like, I don't know, what are the topics? Like what's from one thing to another?
Human experience. So all mental health specific, it could be ADHD, it could be trauma, everyday struggles, postpartum, grief and loss, just things that we're all experiencing. If you're going through it, hopefully we're talking about it. If we're not, tell us. We will, or come on with us and talk to us about it. So just everyday life experiences that we're going through and trying to make sense of. That's where you can find us. And it's about being curious. We're just trying to open the door to curiosity. We're not saying one way is right or the other way is wrong. We're just, oh, that's interesting. That's kind of what you hopefully will find when you come on. Like, oh, maybe. You did a better job, dropping my plug.
Cool. Well, thank you so much, Kiran. Thanks for joining us on this very special episode. To all of the listeners, thanks so much for supporting us. Please continue to give us feedback. Or if you're not following us, but you listen to the podcast, just press that follow button. It helps us immensely. It really helps us understand where the listeners are coming from, and then helps us kind of tailor the message appropriately. So yeah, please keep sharing that input. Any shout outs, Kiran or Mick, that you'd like to give out? Oh, obviously Kerry's getting a shout out.
Shout out to Kerry.
He's been on this episode, but not on this episode.
Oh man, he's gonna be on your stories as the shout out. That's just bullshit. But yeah, shout out to Carrie, everyone. Everyone follow me to get to know my husband, because that's what I am great at. Bringing you to Carrie. So yeah, let's just shout out to Carrie. There we go.
And Karen.
And Karen. And Karen. To all the Karens out there. Yeah.
All the Karens. Brilliant.
Shout out to both of you. Big shout out to both of you. I don't know if you can add that on there, but you can say that I made you. But yeah, big shout out to you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks everyone for listening. Remember, share the struggle, find the funny. See you later, people. Bye.
Peace.
Bye.